What's going on, friends? Welcome back to the channel. So today I want to do a slightly different video. Today I want to share with you a mental model that I use whenever I am starting a new project, starting a new business. And I think that this mental model has served me incredibly well. And it is also something that I have seen other founders use, whether consciously or subconsciously, and it really separates out the ones that end up doing incredibly well in whatever it is that they're trying to do from people that eventually either pivot into something else or just don't continue on with it. Now, in order to illustrate my point, I want to start off with a little example. Let's say, for example, you and me are standing in front of this massive field, and this field has 100 dirt mounds, okay? Now, I tell you that under one of these mounds is $1 million. You'll find a suitcase, has $1 million in it. If you find it, you keep it. But here's the thing. Every single mound that's in front of you will probably take roughly 2 hours to dig up, and it will also, as you can imagine, probably require quite a bit of physical effort, okay? Now, this is essentially how I see the game of business in a way. And what I have found is that there are typically three types of founders and three types of approaches to a challenge like this. So the first group of people, they are the type of people that know that the answer is probably digging, but they also don't really want to get dirty. So those are the people that will try shortcuts, you know? They'll do things like maybe like poke at, the dirt. They might, kick the mounds a bit. They might spend quite a bit of time figuring out what type of shovel they should use. But ultimately, they don't really do much. And they kind of get to the point where they just think that it's going to be impossible. So they eventually just give up. Then there's the second group. Now, the second group are usually the ones that are believers. They're the ones who are like, you know what? Yes, this is going to happen. I know it's going to require work, and let's go. Okay. And so typically what they'll do is they'll grab a shovel and they'll go up to the first mound. They'll start digging. Okay. They won't find something, but they'll keep going. They'll go to the second one. They'll keep digging. Still don't find something. And by about mound 5 or 6, the fact that they haven't seen or found the suitcase yet is going to start wearing on them a bit. And thoughts start to creep into their heads like, oh, this is a bit too hard. What if there's actually no suitcase at the end of this at all, And so ultimately, the further they go, mound 7, mound 8, they just stop believing. And then eventually they just stop. And that's because they just feel like the effort is not worth the potential result. And then we've got group 3, okay? And these are the ones who, in my mind, succeed no matter what, whether it is in this pursuit or any other pursuit. And what they tend to do is they just grab a shovel and they just start digging. And more importantly, they don't stop, okay? Then they know that the only way that they're going to find this suitcase is if they keep digging no matter what. And, even if they do get to the point where, they think that, well, maybe there's no suitcase at the end of it, they approach it from a mindset that, well, in a very worst case, I'm going to get a lot stronger. I'm going to learn how to become more efficient at digging. And that is ultimately what ends up leading them to getting to the point where they'll probably uncover something good. Now, whenever I've talked to people who fall into that third group, there are usually two things that stand out to me. The first thing that stands out to me is that they have realistic expectations about the situation. They look at this pile of dirt and they realize that it's just going to take time to find the suitcase or to find the money, okay? And the second thing that they realize is the only chance that you have at finding the reward is to just keep digging, okay? Now, I don't want to make this entire video about digging dirt, but you can apply this exact thinking to the types of actions that you take in your business on a day-to-day basis. Now, specifically when you're starting a business, okay, you're going to get tested because you're essentially going to be facing a lot of rejection, a lot of digging without finding any sort of reward whatsoever. Okay. And so, for example, if you work on building a product or building, a service or whatever it may be, and you then decide to launch it in the market and you start reaching out to potential customers, okay, you are going to get mostly no's. That is just the reality of it. And the reason why you're going to get mostly no's is because a lot of people don't know who you are. They don't, trust you yet, okay? And typically, it's just kind of hard to find the types of people who are willing to take a shot on something brand new, okay? But there are those types of people out there. And so what these 3 green boxes represent are the people that are going to be willing to say yes at that stage. Now, this stage, in my opinion, is mentally the toughest for the sole reason that if you're not used to a lot of rejection, this here is going to hit you by surprise because you're mostly going to get no's, okay? It's the same thing with something like YouTube, The first 10 videos that you make are probably not going to get any view because people don't know you. Most of the time, people don't care. Sometimes the way that you approach it is not particularly good, okay? But this is where it is incredibly important to stick with it. Because the people who are in the group 1 and 2 in the previous example, this is exactly where they abandon ship, okay? They try, they don't see results, they leave. They try more and more growth hacks, don't see any results, thinks it's impossible, leaves, okay? And so the key thing that you want to do here is just grind through this stage. And grinding through this stage is really the key phrase, okay? Because it won't be fun, okay? And it will require a lot of effort to see little results, okay? However, this is the stage that is going to protect you in the future once you take off. Because once you take off, people will see what you're doing and they'll be like, oh, I want to create something like this as well. And this is the exact stage where they're going to abandon things, okay? So this is typically why, working on something that is important to you makes it a lot easier to get through this stage because you're not necessarily, motivated by monetary rewards and therefore are willing to do it for the love of it. But even if you are doing it for the love of it, this stage will be hard. Either way, as soon as you get it through this stage, you're going to start working with people. They're going to start seeing results. And now your processes are going to get better. You're going to understand, what makes clients say no. And ultimately, it will lead to the point where we'll just get a little bit easier to get some wins on the board, okay? And so now for the next 100 people that you reach out to, okay, you might get, 10 to 15 people saying yes, okay? And these small wins will start compounding, okay? For starters, when you move on to the next stage, okay, you will have, 200 reps of sales calls under your belt, for example, and you understand exactly what works and what doesn't work, okay? Not just at this stage will it become easy to tick through each box. Ticking through each box will get a lot faster because your processes are just going to be way more refined. You're going to have things like word of mouth working in your favor. People will start talking about you without you actually having to do anything. Things like your SEO will start kicking in. And at this stage, things will feel like everything's just falling into place. This will be the stage where you're actually like, okay, I'm onto something. This is actually working. I am actually making money off this. And this stage is what I think is, the most motivating part. Now, here's something that can happen at this stage that you need to be aware of. People at this stage, just when things are about to go to the next level, like to take their foot off the gas. And I am guilty of this myself. I have done this myself. I think more recently I've done this with YouTube. And just because you reach this stage doesn't mean that you stay at this stage, okay? You need to keep going, okay? You need to keep improving your systems. You need to keep stepping up what you're doing. For example, you need to continue to, nurture your relationships with your existing customers. You need to continue getting testimonials and success stories so that you can keep building your reputation, okay? And only if you keep your foot on the gas will you be able to move on to the fourth stage, where things will really start to feel like you're cheating. Now, this is the stage that I reached with the Unicorn Factory, and like it gets to a point where you feel like it just works. Now, again, at this stage, I think, you always have to keep your foot on the gas. Okay, so like, you're never out of the woods. Nothing is guaranteed forever. But what I find at this point is that you can take your foot off the gas slightly without it completely derailing your business, okay? And so when I reached that stage with the Unicorn Factory, I had put processes into place, I had systems down, I had people who would help me with different things, and ultimately it freed time up for me to start working on, my YouTube channel and all those kind of things. And so ultimately, you need to understand that it will take time and effort and work to get to this stage, but this is ultimately what the promised land is. And you just need to remember at all times that you just need to focus on delivering very, very good value at this point, okay? And just, make sure that, you maintain the momentum that you've built up until this point, okay? Now, I have used this particular model to think about whatever it is that I do. Okay, so whenever I start a new project, whenever I set myself a new goal, I always approach it by looking at this particular model here. And that is that for every action that I take, I'm going to get some really good wins, things that are not going to work so well, and then there's some things that are kind of going to be kind of meh. So for example, let's say in this particular case, every box represents a YouTube video that I publish, okay? I might publish the first 3, and it might be kind of like medium. People are kind of like, oh yeah, whatever. Nothing crazy, okay? It's not bad, but it kind of doesn't really matter. Then there's a video that underperforms, okay? So say, for example, I, make a tutorial on something, and I get like very little views or whatever it is, okay? Then there's also the scenario where I make a video and it just goes completely nuts. Heaps of people watch it, heaps of people share it, people are like talking about it, the course sales that I get as a result of that video go up, all those kind of things. Ultimately, when you look at it over a bigger horizon, so in this case 100 videos, you're going to have, roughly speaking, 10 to 20 things that go way better than expected. Then you'll have, 10 to 20-ish things that might go worse than expected. And then you have the rest that kind of just go kind of as expected, kind of as you thought or maybe hoped it would go, okay? And this model can be applied to everything, okay? So you can apply this to doing sales calls with clients. So, each box might represent a sales call. And so the white one might be like when someone wants to think about it, or they might not buy your course, but they buy like a consulting session of you. The red one is like a flat out, no, don't want to work with you. A green one is like, oh, actually, not just do I want like your course, I want to be part of your mastermind, all those kind of things. And ultimately, like I said, you can kind of apply it to whatever it is that you want. At the end of the day, the most important thing that I remember is that I can't really determine what color a box is going to turn at any given time, but what I can control is just digging through each box. And so ultimately, whether you're starting a new business, whether you're starting a YouTube channel, whether you're starting a podcast, blog, whatever it is, look at this and just remember that the only thing that counts is to just actually do the work, and then just let the chips fall as they may. And so that is ultimately what I wanted to say on this topic. You don't want to be the person that like digs into 6 boxes and then goes, no, this is not worth it, and gives up, okay? Because you never know. You might just be one good action away from uncovering something that might be a complete game changer for you. So yeah, I'm going to leave it at that. I'd love to hear what you think about this kind of video. I typically don't make these videos only because, primarily I think that people don't want to hear this kind of stuff. But if you do, let me know in the comments down below, and I'll share more of my wisdoms. Okay, have a great rest of your day. Bye.